For how long?
At least one more week or maybe 10 days more. And she was very helpful. It was good to spend some time with her and listen to Dhamma, and she's always very eager to share, and it was always beneficial to listen to. Vincent, he's very active in sharing with some of the Chinese people, the monks, the female bhikkhunis, and some lay people who are interested. I suppose that one question that came up, and I remember it quite strongly,
in Taiwan?
Yes, in Taiwan, was about Ajarn, about this aspect of right effort, and people find it very difficult to see who makes the effort. And I sympathised with Jonathan and Sarah. They did a really good job, I thought, to explain to people, but people somehow think that what do you do if it's all up to conditions? Or they were confused. They felt that they found it difficult to understand that aspect of the Dhamma, that there's nobody who makes an effort. So perhaps that would be one area I'd like to hear from you, Ajarn. One question also that someone asked was that because the Buddha is all wise, all knowing as much as can be known, people felt it hard to understand that how come he doesn't have wisdom all the time. Some people believe that because he's Samma Sambuddho, he has wisdom all the time. And we know through Mahakiriya Chittas that sometimes wisdom does not arise. So people found that hard to understand, or not so easy to perhaps appreciate. Perhaps that's another thing we can speak about. I'm just trying to think of some other points, but people, were very interested. There's two lay people who seemed to be very interested, and others who couldn't always come every day. There was a group of male upasakas who came and who were very interested and asked many questions, but they had limited time. And I have a question also, but I'll leave that till the end, Ajarn. So perhaps the first question I would like to ask is, what is correct effort? What is Samma Vayamo? Can you speak a little bit about Samma Vayamo and the development of understanding without the idea of self? How can that be done?
About Samma Vayamo, is it real?
Yes, of course.
And is it I?
No, it cannot be I.
Yeah. Ask them whether they can have time to think about it over and over and can see that actually there's no one at all. Otherwise, how much we tell them, they don't get it yet, because they don't really understand each word as it is. For example, Samma Vayamo is not seeing. So, out of the two, which one is the self or the I? Which one? Seeing and Vayamo.
Yes. Well, neither of them are self.
But from their view,
Yes.
they thought that it's very difficult to understand that there is no self.
Yes.
Let us ask them just one word at a time about whether seeing is self or hearing is self or thinking is self. They're different. Which one? Or everyone. But if they don't arise at all, how can there be I with Vayama or seeing and so on? I think that the best thing is not telling them anything at all. Let them think. if they can think out.
Yes.
It's their own understanding. If we say that this is this, they think that it's our own understanding. Let them think. The best thing, just one word at a time, no matter what.
So, Ajarn, that's why you always bring back to seeing now. Because if there's any understanding about any Dhamma, it has to start from now.
Mm-hmm.
So, while we're talking about Vayamo, we're talking about effort, right effort, to understand right effort as being a Dhamma, it has to start from whatever appears now.
Mm-hmm.
If there's understanding that seeing is not is a Dhamma, not self, then of course there would be no doubt about Vayamo as being Dhamma,
Mm-hmm.
no self.
But let them think.
I suppose, Ajarn, I am sympathetic for them in a way because self is so strong, or ignorance is so strong.
So the best thing is ask them to think about it.
And then, okay, what kind of question would you be inclined to ask them?
Any question,
question.
like which one is self?
Which one?
It's seeing
Yes.
I and then hearing I.
Yes.
And
yes,
what about seeing which has gone? And
Yes.
where's the I?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Which sees anymore?
You can see from the way they question that they're still coming from self. When they ask if there's no if it's all up to conditions, already in that is implicit that they're thinking about someone leaving things up to conditions, right?
Yes.
Their question is based on that misunderstanding that up to conditions means we have to leave everything up to condition, but there's still a we. They don't understand that even now, whatever appears now, the seeing now is reality. And if you understand that conditions means the seeing now has arisen with, by conditions and no self, then it's easy to understand that any reality is like that.
I hear what you're saying, Khonso Khin, and of course I agree with you. I'm still sympathetic towards them because I know that this area is difficult because people are so used to thinking in terms of somebody who can do something or should do something. Like another question that was asked was, well, what about chanda? What about kusala chanda? Surely that must mean that right aspiration must be made.
You see again,
Yeah, I know.
it's they're thinking about themselves, their practice, their this thing, and trying to find justification for it. First, they by way of saying, questioning, if it's all up to conditions, then how will anything develop? Then next they're trying to say, oh, then if it's not, what about my effort? Maybe that's chanda, right?
Yes.
Maybe what I'm trying is
Kusala.
not motivated by ignorance and attachment, but by kusala chanda. So it's still thinking in terms of self. So they're not trying to understand Dhamma. They're just thinking about their own situation and caught up in the story, and trying to and ending up hearing the Buddha's teachings and trying to make it fit into their beliefs.
Of course, yes, I totally agree, and that still, I'm appreciating what Ajarn is saying, that it's important to consider carefully so that you can understand the different conditions more clearly, and there really is nobody, but because they are trying to understand from a point of view of self, because that's the only mechanism they know.
Yes.
Therefore, it seems very difficult and sometimes very difficult to help. And I think great patience is needed
And
at times.
you might draw the attention also to why particular interest in right effort, why not seeing now? Is it not important to understand seeing now?
No, well, of course it is. I appreciate the reminder. But I think people often struggle with the relevance of that. They don't appreciate the conditionality
And
of
that shows that they have not accumulated the understanding, because when we hear about seeing, we understand that this is what needs to be understood. And each time Ajarn reminds us, there are some people who listen to Ajarn and they say, oh, she's repeating the same thing again and again. Why doesn't she talk about something else? But we can appreciate that it's the only worthy reality. It's the only thing that's worth talking about what appears now. Because we appreciate that there's no understanding, and understanding starts from whatever appears.
I suppose you're reminding me also, Kunsakin, about correct understanding pariyatti correctly, and people seem to still think that it's about learning and reciting.
It's in the book.
It's in the book. So, and then they, of course, they want to practice, as what they've heard, because that's what everybody else says. So it becomes almost a kind of a circle where people are going around trying to figure out how to do it from the point of view of self, which of course will make it more and more difficult, because you're reinforcing a wrong view about things, and nothing much is accomplished in terms of understanding the Dhamma that appears. So that area was talked about, Ajarn. Perhaps I could ask you a question that was talked about, Nina, and I talked about it, shared it with a friend, and the question was asked about, if Samma Sambuddha is Samma Sambuddha, how come he does not have wisdom all the time?
Okay. What about now?
No, yes.
Do we see all the time?
No.
So, the same as Buddha, by conditions.
Sometimes he sees and hearing.
Yeah, it means that this is meant usually as all the time, but in details like abhidhamma, it's not all the time.
No, of course.
But when we talk about all the time, we talk about that which is known like this.
Yes. Of course that's true. That's a good example again. It's very obvious that he must see and hear and think as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. At the moment, though, of thinking...
That is his teaching about what he has enlightened, not every moment.
No.
But we can use the word all the time, as long as it's there, like now, seeing all the time. But actually he thought in details much more than this, to be learnt, to understand each word.
And Ajarn, also when Kusala arises, and for Arahats will be Kriya, Sobhana, Chitta and Chetasika arises to perform their functions, such as moments of kindness, moments of compassion, moments of generosity, or moments of ubekha. At that moment, it's the object is a concept, and wisdom can come next moment to know that. So at that moment itself, no wisdom. It's just kusala or sobhana chetasika without wisdom also. That must also arise for Buddha.
That's why not just understanding from the book, but there must be understanding the moment, so that we can understand clearly, directly about just one reality by sati, which is developed to that degree. Otherwise, who can talk whether now it is sada or chanda, see, without sati, just from the book, that what is the moment of saddha and what is the moment of chanda. It depends on the degree of understanding which develops from hearing, considering, and know that just learn about this reality, it doesn't mean that we know all of them as not self. The self hears, and the self thinks, and the self have the seeing the value, the benefit of understanding, but it actually there is no self at all. even at that moment, all are dhammas. If they have such firm foundation about all reality, can be understood as it is, little by little. They'll see it from the beginning, they have firm understanding, there's no self, but there are different realities. Which one is self? The eye, the ear, arm. See, we cannot find the self because the eye is the eyes.
Well, look, of course, Ajarn, I appreciate what you say. I'm just sympathetic, shall I say, mostly with the Kusala, and I consider it carefully, that people, because that's what everybody else teaches in Taiwan, or no doubt Thailand, as you know, or Australia or New Zealand or wherever, they're teaching this idea which is very insidious or very treacherous. So it's not easy for people to, because they're not the right friends around, they're telling them
they used to follow, not to think.
Yes, that's right. That's a really good point, Ajarn. Such a good point. Yeah, they used to.
But Ajarn, regardless of where each person comes, isn't it important that when they hear the Dhamma, I mean, as we have heard from you, at that moment, if they have the accumulations, then you cannot, it's no point talking about past practice and if they've been misled or anything, because misleading, there's no misleading without the person who is misled, right? So it's our own wrong view which is at fault. So even after hearing the Dhamma and we still don't understand, then it's our own wrong view, wrong understanding and ignorance.
I think Ajarn just raised a really good point, though, that people are being told what to do. They're not enabled to consider carefully. So a good teacher will always help people to consider carefully and to ask the right questions, rather than just telling people what to do, which is, quite a common thing that people just follow. They don't consider carefully, they just follow, and we can see that's not helpful, and how important it is for the Dhamma to consider carefully and to ask questions. A question that I've got, Ajarn, I've got a couple, I'm just trying to remember the other one, but the first question is with regarding Pasada Rupa. So when does that arise? Like, there is the moment of seeing, and so therefore the Pasada Rupa must have arisen, but does it rise with the object or after the object?
Okay. What condition the eye base? You are asking about eye base.
Yes, I'm asking about Pasada. So what conditions that? That's a good question.
See, if we don't think at all, we just follow what it said.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me think about it.
Mm-hmm.
What conditions that? Well, what conditions I base? Past karma must be part of it.
Mm-hmm. Not part.
Yes, it is.
All of it, is it? All right, past karma.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, at what point does that arise? It must arise before the object, is it?
Yes.
Pure jata. It must be.
It arises at moment when citta arises, and at moment when citta hasn't fallen away yet, and even at moment of falling away. 3 moments. Karma condition the eye base each moment.
But Sundra's asking, does it arise before seeing consciousness?
It does matter if it doesn't arise yet. How can there is patsa?
It has to arise before.
Mm.
It makes sense that it has to arise before.
So therefore we can say it's pure jata pachya.
Yeah. And what we didn't say yet, let them think about it by themselves. Yeah. Mhm.
Yes.
So studying the teachings of the Buddha need consideration, considering so much to really understand little by little about it. For example, pasatha rupa is conditioned by karma. What about at moment of falling, being asleep? Is there pasatha rupa arising?
No.
Why not? See?
Yes.
What is it?
When
It-
there
it
is
arises-
thinking,
And each of Anukkana Chitta.
Each anukkana chitta.
Each
Each anukkana.
anukkana.
Yeah.
See,
See,
each momentary
each chitta. The thing is that it arises, and then it depends on contact. What, through which doorway?
that's why we ask to know whether it's firm understanding enough or not, or just follow and say yes and think that it has to be like that. But when it's asked different question, it's the time to understand whether that person understand or not yet clearly.
So can you speak more to that, Ajarn? Because I'm not understanding that, because if there is not visual object when, for example, when I'm sleeping,
Mhm.
then it would seem that there is no pasada rupa arising.
You think?
Yeah, I know. I know.
Not
That's
follow
what I
the
thought.
teachings, because Buddha said each moment, each the what you call the beginning, the arising and before falling away, and the moment when it falls away. One chitta, each minor karma condition chitta,
Arising then is
sustaining
Titipanga,
titi
yeah.
panka, each one.
If it wasn't that way, then it would lean towards what you were suggesting earlier, that karma and something. When it's only karma, you can understand that it whole life from birth to death. Pasada rupas are being conditioned. Because if it's not like that, then you're saying that, oh, after we wake up, then it conditions, then there must be some other condition also.
the wake
Right.
up condition.
Wake up condition.
What one?
The wake up condition.
No matter who, no matter when, karma condition rupa to arise. And we cannot count how much, so we use the chitta. The moment it rises, there is kamacharupa. At moment of titi, there must be kamacharupa. At moment of even banga, there must be pasatarupa. And all karma condition, all rupa which is conditioned by karma, all, not only eye base.
So Ajarn will say that that is one difference between a dead body and a living body.
Right. That's why all karma charupa stop arising before death 17 moments. So all karma charupa does not arise at moment of death or 17 moments before that.
Oh,
Kamma charupa. But chitta charupa, a little bit more, that which arises with this consciousness still go on until 17 moments. That's why somebody look at the corpse, the dead body, and see the smiling face or something like that by chitta charupa before this. But it's much more details than that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I can. Just listening to it, Ajarn, I can appreciate how Dhamma is so finely tuned.
Until it's your own understanding.
Yes.
Otherwise it's useless
Yes.
because it's
Yes.
Buddha's understanding.
Yes, yes, of course.
And I'm thinking I can appreciate how harmful, how dangerous ignorance is.
So,
I mean, even after hearing so much, we keep listening and still so much ignorance.
so if one still think that they can do anything, they forget about all dhammas are anatta. This is a truth which must be followed, developing until it can experience directly the moment when it's not self.
Yeah, Kun Jonathan raised a good point. I was asking him a question. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember what it was now. But he said that dhammas are not known conventionally. They're known by wisdom. And I found that quite helpful too. It's like
That's very good.
people try to understand Dhamma by thinking about it. And
By themselves.
yes, by themselves, and of course that will not enable the development of understanding. It's I just found that point when he said dhammas cannot be known conventionally. They're known by wisdom.
Although when it's pariyati, it requires thinking,
Yes.
but it's not. We wouldn't consider that conventional.
No.
But although it's just thinking, it's not thinking in words. It's known with the help of thinking, and then we start thinking in words. Then you can say it is conventional at that point, but it's not. The moment of understanding is not conventional.
So there are many degrees, or 3 degrees of wisdom:
Yes.
pariyati,
Yes.
patipatti, and pativeda.
And which we also can say Satchinyana, Kichinyana and Katanyana,
Yeah.
kind of the same thing.
Is now there is firm belief or understanding that there actually no self at all. Firm enough?
Not yet. Ajahn.
Not yet.
Ajarn, each time you ask that, it has to be no. Answer has to be no, because I'm appreciating how, with so little panya, how can it be firm? It cannot.
But when there is understanding about anatta, see, why do we listen to the teachings? Because if there is no understanding from his word, there must be the self. But from his very sharp and intelligent and clear teachings, then it begins to develop to be much more than just hearing, because this can be known, this can be directly understood, and this can be just enlightened. No doubt about each word he said. For example, what arises falls away. See, if it cannot be known directly, it's useless to say and to learn about it. But we have the belief, understanding, firm confidence that that is now which appear is arisen and fallen away immediately. Just arise to perform its function, only that, and then no more.
So, Ajarn, when you say firm, you actually refer to,
In,
certain level, beginning level of Satyayana.
because you see that all are satya, vaja of the Buddha, and whether it is jnana or not yet. So when it's panya, of what degree? When it's degree of intellectual understanding, it's different from patipatti, for sure. And at moment of being the patipatti, it's not the pativeda yet. So we know the difference. But as long as that hasn't arisen yet, it's impossible to think about it beyond thinking.
But Ajarn, I was also thinking that there is still a lot of wrong view. And
Yes,
that can
is it
arise
adhamma?
any- Huh?
Is it
It
adhamma?
is,
So panya has to know.
but it does not know. Very
As
often
long-
it does not know.
As long as it's not known, it's not the pariyati.
When
so-
it's not known.
So the Thai used the word pariyati, but the meaning of pariyati is raw-pru. All, everything that Buddha said being understood clearly, firmly,
Everything.
everything. Now see, what is that? If we don't think about the name, we do not think about it. But understand that it's that which appears.
So maybe at pariyati level, it's different from patipati level, because I'm thinking mostly that in a day, there's a lot of wrong view arising, mistaking akusla for kusla, and there's no direct knowing. But when asked, when reflecting on it, then we know that it is wrong. Lopa is wrong. But when the lopa arises, there's this belief that the lopa is good.
I don't think that one has the idea that lopa is good.
Not like that. Let me take the example of in my own case, that for example, I'm very attached to my son Haji, and more often than not, I think when I go and express my feelings to him, it's a good thing. So that seems to imply that I'm not seeing that lopa is harmful.
When there's no understanding of the truth.
So that is an example of mistaking what is akusla for.
That's why, what level of understanding can eradicate that?
Oh, that's very hard.
See, so it has to be just like this.
Okay.
Yeah, but Panya can understand anything
Yes.
by conditions, not by selection.
I'm thinking also, like when one smiles, there can be kusala involved, and Panya can know that. So, and people might think that's always just lobha, but it can be kusala. And yeah,
Sure.
of course. So I guess I'm thinking in the case of yourself with Haji there, when you're talking about some things, yes, it would seem to me. No,
it's
you-
not-
No,
it's
you
not
don't.
that.
You don't think. Okay, right. I see. Okay, that's right. But yeah,
No, because I know.
because you're saying that attachment is so strong.
I'll just give you another example. When I reflect on the fact that it's attachment and it's different if it was metta,
Mm-hmm.
then I can see at that moment intellectually I appreciate that the lopa is
Attached.
attached, whereas metta is a wholesome, and it's better for him if there was metta than attachment.
Why
For you,
why not? Yeah,
For him also, in the sense
I
that
think that he need lopa from you. Would he like to have you change?
No. I'm saying if my actions done with metta would be better than actions done with lopa.
But who knows? Hachi cannot know.
Hachi cannot know that. It's not. I'm not saying in the sense of knowing. I'm saying in the sense of
Appreciation.
things working out in life. If I have moments of metta, then I'm not going to
Scold
behave
him.
towards him for my benefit. It's for his benefit. That's what I mean.
Doesn't he want you to behave the way that
That I know.
he
That
likes?
everyone like me. I want lopa. I want, and he also wants lopa, because of we have less understanding. We have a lot of ignorance and attachment. That I understand. So I can reflect that metta is good and lopa is not.
But say you want someone to care for you, it means that they want love or attachment from the other.
That also can be. So what you're saying, Ajarn, is that sometimes you want to show attachment out of metta, because you know that's what he wants. Is that what you're saying?
I mean that everyone just want the other to care or to love.
Yes.
So-
yes. He likes me to hug him. He likes me
Yeah.
to.
Mhm.
Yes, I understand that. But I know that. If
But when he's wise enough, he doesn't want you to have lopa. He would like you
he
prefer to have metta.
yes, for
Yeah.
my sake also,
And for him,
his sake also. Yes.
All depends on understanding.
It seems that it's in my way of thinking, it's easier to have metta towards a stranger than it is towards people I know. Often in the street, I might catch someone's eyes, and it's just very easy to smile, and sometimes a smile back, or sometimes nothing.
Because of
That
habit.
just seems really.
Because of habit, if I have attachment towards Haji, each time I hear his voice, it's attachment. Each time I see his face, it's attachment automatically, right? So when you meet a stranger, there's not that automatic reaction, the conditioned habit. So that may be maybe a moment of reflection. But this moment I hear his voice, instead of thinking about Dhamma, it's attachment.
There was an old cat, just as I came outside where I stay. There's this really dirty old cat with all, the hair's coming off. So I stopped and I said to the cat, "What did you do to get like this?" And I bent down and I went like this under his neck, and he relaxed and went, "Arr, arr." And I was very surprised because he had big sharp teeth, and just an old cat, stray cat. I thought I better be careful, maybe it will bite me. But it really enjoyed what I was doing. So I don't know, maybe then it became attachment because I'd won over the cat.
You don't know when.
I don't know,
when,
no.
Ajahn, before you arrived, we were talking about even just blinking the eyes. We all do it with attachment, and that's because there's so much attachment, and every moment, everything is automatically. It's the chance for attachment to come to be attached. Anything, it's by habit, and because there's so much of it. So in a day, really, kusala is so little.
Very difficult. Without understanding, it cannot develop.
I mean, all we can say is that we are thankful to have heard the truth. Otherwise, it's just not only more attachment and aversion and ignorance, but as human beings, a lot of wrong understanding.
So it's impossible to go to the meditation center and think that can be enlightened or have less akusa. It brings more and more attachment. That's why no matter who doesn't want to hear it, but we have to say it, because it's the words of the Buddha, to save them from wrong understanding.
And that actually shows our own firmness. If we hesitate to speak the truth, that why? Because we're not.
Right. He has right understanding. Yeah.
I didn't follow that.
No, if we hesitate to speak the truth, then it must be our akusala.
I don't know. Is that always the case? I think sometimes
It's not the right time to
maybe not the right time, or
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. We talk of time to speak.
Sorry.
We don't talk about that, but we talk about when it's time to speak, and then you don't.
Just before, Ajarn, you were talking about firmness of understanding with regard to Satchinyana, and so there must be different levels of firmness.
Okay. When there's firm understanding that what appears now can be directly enlightened, it's so firm that you don't go anywhere else. As long as there's no understanding of this moment, why go to the other? It doesn't bring any understanding at all.
That's firm. Yes.
But also, firm can be many levels, isn't it? As Ajahn, sometimes we hear the Dhamma and we know it's the truth. That's also one level of firmness, isn't it?
Never change from the truth.
Because there are people who not interested.
Or listen to everything and believe in all teachings.
Yes, some people have this idea that all paths go to the same place. I've heard that not uncommon.
That shows not firm, not firm at all.
Because there's only one way.
One way.
Can we also say that the level of firmness depends on the level of understanding? The more understanding one has, the firmer it is.
And firmness depends on sattha. Is it a
Depends on panya.
And what I mean to say, it is an expression of sattha.
Many realities.
Many realities.
Yeah. So when there's not enough understanding, it's not as firm as when there's understanding. Kun Sukhin, what did I say?
I think you said when there's not enough understanding, that's not enough firmness. Is that what you said?
Not as firm
Not
as
as
when
firm,
there is
yeah.
understanding.
And that's very, very, very momentary. Like there might be a moment of saddha for the teaching, knowing that this is right, this is the right way, but it changes really quickly.
But can we also, Ajarn, talk about firmness in terms of accumulations?
Yeah. Because you cannot have firm understanding from the very beginning. It develops with understanding on and on.
So, Sariputta's was the most firm after the Buddha. When he heard just one word and he got enlightened. It was already firm. The basis was already firm.
And who can have firm confidence?
Sotapanna.
Yeah.
Sotapanna.
So what is when we think that I'm firm enough? Not as firm as Sotapanna. Because
So actually, I was wrong to say that at that moment his firmness was second only to the Buddha. It was not. Those Aryans who was already enlightened before him, theirs was firm already. Was more firm. They became Sotapannas and the Arahats and
stage by stage. For example, even the understanding the difference between the Nama and the Rupa, is it firm now? See, we just learn and has firm understanding of understanding only that it has to be that way. But as long as it hasn't happened yet, then it's not as firm as when it's there.
Ajarn, I always appreciate your teaching on Satyayana, Kichayana and Katayana. So when you ask about difference between Nama and Rupa, that's Katayana. So we know that it's not even Satyayana yet. So how can that be?
There is Satyayana as long as you listen to the teachings and see that it's so true.
But Ajarn, if Anatta Sanya is only at the level of what Kunnopatot is saying, then how can Patipati arise if there's no Anatta Sanya?
So Satipatthana is the measurement
So that there must be some Anatta Sanya there at that level
enough,
also.
to condition.
Yes.
Yeah. Otherwise, who knows whether it's Satyayana enough yet?
Anatta Sanya. That's knowing anatta. Anatta Sanya. Would there not be some degree of Anatta Sanya? As we hear the teachings and we're told that this arises and falls, this arises and falls. And so intellectually there is knowing, well, I think there's knowing of the truth of the Dhamma. So is that not some degree of Anatta
It's still
Sanya?
something we're still thinking about
Visible object rising and
It's
falling.
still something we don't see that.
No,
visible
I'm not
object
saying
directly.
no. I'm not saying that we do, but there is knowing.
Still
on it,
thinking.
and there
Yeah,
is
so
still
it's-
thinking.
it
Yes,
is-
yes.
It is requiring thinking, which is already not anatta samya.
And who still know? Who knows?
Oh, probably me.
Firm enough?
Yeah, very firm. Me is very
No, my
firm.
first reaction when I was hearing was thinking along your lines, but then I thought a little further, and then I came to a conclusion that what Kunopadan was saying. But then I thought, but Satipatthana is direct understanding. Without anatta samya, there can't be Satipatthana.
To
There must be some
understand, to understand object as no atta.
No, I
So what's the point of listening to the teachings of the Buddha?
to develop understanding.
To consider carefully.
For whom?
Well,
For the sake of understanding.
the sake of understanding.
And understanding what appears, that's the only
Not
object.
self, who is even listening. That is the goal.
And that's firm.
Mhm. Just to understand the truth. That's not me, not self. If it's to understand the truth, which I have known, it's strong in.
But at least, even if there's that thinking, that can be known. That there is
So,
that thinking.
How great and how long Panya develops to that degree. Because usually it's the object of attachment to know more. See?
So what you're saying is a reminder about that. The path is about detachment all the way.
Mhm. It has to be like that. No me, no self. Just only for that sake. Not for me.
It seems to be a subtle point there. It can be known that more understanding is needed, but not needed by a self.
Mhm.
That can be a bit tricky.
More difficult to know. That is lower.
Understanding is needed, including to know what understanding is. That is just a Dhamma.
How long will it take?
How do we know?
That's it.
We do
No
not
one
know when,
knows.
but we know that right now it's a lot of ignorance. Even when we're listening, compare with people during the Buddha's time. Listening, they become enlightened. We listen year after year after year. Just if we say, better understanding, only at the intellectual level.
I can't help but thinking at those times when the Buddha was around that we would be more at an advantage because he would know the best word to say, and that's what I'm considering at the moment. Whereas we've heard all the right things, but I wonder if having the Buddha around would be more helpful.
Or maybe it happened.
No.
Maybe it happened. How do you know it didn't happen?
I have thought about that, but I think maybe I was just asleep all the time. Not
Because,
listening.
It's just we're so stupid.
So stupid.
because you see that why do you want to be at that time? What for?
Well,
What he said, just like we have heard. What he said is that we have heard.
yes,
even now.
many times we.
But if we see him without understanding,
You're saying almost as if he's teach a shortcut. Where he knows something better to say than Ajarn. But whatever it is, it's towards the reality now, and that's what Ajarn is doing towards what appearing now. And if there's no wisdom for the person to understand at that moment as object of panya at different levels, then it won't happen. But Ajarn, meeting a Buddha itself is result of karma?
Of course.
No difference.
As meeting you, for example, or
Not
anyone?
me, as long as there is still me, it's not the word.
All right,
Yeah.
hearing the
Mhm.
Buddha. But it seems to be a little special if it's the Buddha.
That's why there are Buddha vinaya
Mhm.
and Savaka vinaya and Dhamma vinaya.
What do can you elaborate on those, Ajarn? What do you mean?
Only Buddha can help you.
Right.
Only him, because
Yes.
of accumulation,
Yes.
to hear directly from him. Buddha vinaya. But even Savaka vinaya, not meeting the Buddha, like Sariputta met Asachi.
Yeah, of course.
That is the Savaka vinaya.
Yeah.
And Dhamma vinaya, not seeing the Buddha, but still hear his word. The same actually, no difference. So we can know by oneself. No one can tell us how much understanding one has. For example, as long as there is kun and kun everyone, no moment for the right understanding to slip in and understand that it's just that which is seen. See? So one knows by oneself.
That's like in the case of Pacheka Buddhas, that's Dhamma Vinaya.
Mhm.
Yes, they understand themselves.
Because any understanding can slip in at any moment by conditions, to that degree that they can become enlightened, or as Sotapanna or Arahata. That's the way to see the Buddha. Not just the seeing his form and that which is seen, but the understanding.
So why
See his
is
form and
like the Dhamma Vinaya? That's the Dhamma Vinaya, the rules of the monk. So what is it different to the Dhamma Vinaya you talked about now?
Yeah, the Vinaya in that sense means training, like the part of the way. Vinayati means to follow a way.
And
So-
is it different to the Dhamma
Yes,
Vinaya
yes.
before?
Well,
from before?
it's different in meaning and different in the context.
Why do you say that it's different?
Well, he just said it's different.
Well,
Much.
it's different
I
in
don't-
context.
I mean that nobody can change the Vinaya and Dhamma. If anyone thinks that it should change by the time, it's wrong. Because
Because the Dhamma Vinaya are rules set
Fine.
down by the Buddha.
Well, the word it's the training here. So, like Ajarn mentioned those three different concepts before, the Buddha Vinaya. So, because of the training of a Buddha, as opposed to a Sawaka Vinaya, which is through the training of a Sawaka, and the Dhamma Vinaya being the training because the knowing the way of the Dhamma. And you can say that Vinaya is like, which means literally when you talk about Vinaya, we're talking about the Vinaya, we're saying the training rules for a monk. So it's got a slightly different context.
what is Vinaya?
Well, the only Vinaya I know is the book, the training rules that some I've read. So
But what's the real meaning of Vinaya?
I'm not sure.
Doesn't mean to lead out. Yeah, to lead out with kusa. Yes, to lead out of kila. Yes, of course. It means vinati, to lead, to go out. you to follow a correct path. Yeah.
Is there vinaya now?
Occasionally, maybe. I'd like to think yes.
That's why we have to be รอบรู้ in pariyatti. Otherwise, there's doubt here and there.
But Ajarn, sometimes, like for example, what Sundara just talked about, referred to Buddha Vinaya, Savaka Vinaya, Dhamma Vinaya.
No, what's that?
I don't know what is that.
No.
Anyway, sometimes we haven't heard. If we haven't heard, then there's no fault in the sense that if we're asked and we don't know the answer. But once an explanation is given and we don't understand, that's what Robru means, isn't it? For example, if you explain, then only do I need to consider? Do I have started to consider that aspect of the Dhamma? Like for example, we're talking about Vinaya. Even I didn't know the meaning of Vinaya. And if you ask me what does Vinaya mean, and I say I don't know. And I've been using Vinaya, but without knowing what it is. But because I've not thought about it. I've only referred to the teachings, and I was thinking to myself before that Vinaya means good behavior and of monks and all that. But that's not an important issue, isn't it? That maybe I didn't know the meaning.
Is there any relation between vinaya and sila?
So the question was, is seeing different?
Is
Sila different from?
reality?
Sila is reality.
So sila is not different from the way reality is.
No.
So there can be akusala sila when
Yes.
chitta is akusala,
Yes.
and kusala sila and
Right.
abhiyagata sila.
Right.
And what about vinaya?
Yes, they can be all same. It can be. Oh, if the meaning is, then it has to be kusla and abhigata.
What is vinaya?
Vinaya is the path leading out. That means the good behavior that leads out.
So the point of behave according to sila is the point of doing or following the vinaya is
Is to have good behavior, or we can
what
say
for?
to lead out of samsara, to develop more wholesome.
That's why we have to understand the meaning of sila and vinaya, because sila is even akusala the way it is, because chitta, cetasika, to go on daily, depending on accumulation. So there can be sila, which is akusala sila, and vinaya is different. From
When we talk,
sin.
yes,
Mhm.
okay, yes. No, my question was this: that sometimes we don't know the meaning, and so, for example, I've just heard today about Vinaya means. Not knowing the meaning is not reflection, is not proof
Impossible.
that it's not proof that one is my Rob rule, because sometimes you've not heard. You may have heard in past lives, but you need to be.
So that is not rabru. But when it's rabru, you know the difference between sila and vinaya and
But
dhamma.
only after you hear. You
That's
cannot
it.
say before.
That
you
is
heard.
pariyatti, which needs hearing. Without hearing, no understanding of this at all.
Good behavior.
Discipline.
Discipline. Really?
What? Like in the soldier discipline.
It's like someone try to tell you that it's hard. It hurt when it hurt you when it touched the heart. But someone didn't know that. It's like to show the what is a kusala or kusala.
So we are saying that the vinaya reminds us about what is kusala and what is akusala. So when you read it, you're being reminded about what is akusala behavior, what is kusala behavior.
Is Dhamma Vinaya?
Yes, I would say.
No, but vinaya, Dhamma as the teachings is vinaya.
As the truth.
But if we are saying that we can't say that akusala is vinaya, can we say? Because akusala is also a dhamma.
So what is the real meaning of Vinaya?
Get out from kilesa.
That's what is get out.
When we say about, Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, Ujjapatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, and one of them is Nyaya-patipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho. We're talking about the Aryans who have gone by their behaviour beyond Nyaya-patipanno Bhagavato, the disciples who have gone beyond, they're no more rebirth, or they've attained to at least Sotapati Magga. So we can say they're Nyaya Patipanno, they are accomplished in training.
So is Vinaya different from Dhamma?
No, not in that sense.
We can say that Dhamma is Vinaya and Vinaya is Dhamma.
I can understand.
There cannot be Vinaya without understanding at all.
Okay.
There cannot be Vinaya
No, okay.
when there is no understanding.
No, and certainly in that sense when we say
It's the same.
Supatipanno Bhagavato and so on like that, because we're talking about enlightened people. Yeah.
So what is Vinaya?
What's Vinaya is, in that sense, is Dhamma. Everything we hear here is actually understanding Vinaya. Understanding Dhamma is understanding Vinaya.
What is the point of become a monk?
To understand. To understand.
Why do they have to understand?
Because they see the value of understanding and see the harm of samsara.
Without understanding, there can never be the moment of letting go akusala at all. That's why not just learning and not following the way Buddha taught us to understand the truth. What is kusala and what is akusala, and Vinaya knows what will bring about more kusala moment, which can be accumulated until it can letting go akusala. So the real meaning of Vinaya is that which will bring about the moment of letting go from moment to moment until the Panya attain the degree that it can letting go by different level of understanding, Sotapanna and Skatakami and Nakami Arahata.
But that's the same with Panya, isn't it?
Dhamma.
Each Panya is also for letting go.
Mm-hmm. That's why they become monk, because they just want to develop understanding, to see the danger of akusala and to follow the right way as being a monk.
But does the
For
these rules
whom?
Patimokkha equals the Vinaya? Isn't the big
Anything which will lead to the understanding to be able to letting go from moment to moment. So it needs understanding.
It seems the Vinaya is more than the Patimokkha.
For those who see the danger of akusala from hearing the truth, if one does not understand, they do not follow Vinaya because they don't know what should be letting go.
And when you think of those, that Ovada Patimokkha, Sabapapasta Karanam, Sabapapasta Karanam, kusala supasambhada. Sachita pariyodhana, it's the pure, it's developing the, letting go of akusala, developing kusala, and purifying the mind. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. So you can see pati moksha means literally that which touches freedom, ultimately, in that very small phrase there, sabapapasa. It's just about the enlightened individual.
So anyone who understands the teachings will follow the teaching, and that is vinaya. To be able to letting go through words and body and even mind.
That's why we shouldn't consider the vinaya is for monks only.
No, not at all. For anyone. Is the 5 precept vinaya, not for monk only. See? Anyone who understands the teachings. We can have more than 5 or 8 or 10 when we study vinaya. What Buddha taught bhikkhu to follow is all very beneficial. So we can say that.
But Ajarn, I'm thinking also, okay, I can understand the 5 precepts are training rules. The word they use is training rules, means that it sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail. But the 3 which Sundar was saying, referring to just now,
What Ajarn was talking about.
You were saying avoid kusala.
Oh yeah, well it's actually 4 of them. Sabapapasa karanam, so not to do
wrong deeds.
Papa, kusala sabapapasa karanam, kusala upasambhada, to take up kusala, sachita pariyodhanam, to purify the mind, etana buddhasasanam. That's the teachings of all the Buddhas.
Right. So the teachings of all the Buddhas are these 3. Ajarn, it seems to imply that the purify the mind is important. That means the even avoiding akusala or developing kusala is with understanding.
Because why do we abstain from akusala?
Yes, why?
See, it has to depend on to understand the truth.
So even the precepts, training rules, the first is not just to follow the rules, is to understand.
So people misunderstood. They think that just not to do, just follow. But it is not like that at all. Because no one do, or no one can do anything, but it's all, they are all dhammas, which abstain, virati cetasika. See, so the people who do not understand the teachings, Pitaka, with wrong understanding, it's like something that Buddha told them not to do, not to do, not to do, or to follow. But actually, he thought about the truth of everything, that is not you or anyone at all. That's why Dhamma is vinaya. It takes away from out the wrong understanding. Each word is opposite of wrong understanding. It has to be done with right understanding, not anyone at all.
It's almost like if any of the teachings is followed with wrong understanding, is destroying the teachings.
Mm-hmm.
Or with no understanding, it's destroying the teachings.
Not understanding is the way to destroy the teachings.
Not understanding is the way to destroy.
Each wrong words doesn't bring about right understanding. Follow, need the following. Actually, it's understanding. Each word for understanding. So is there sila now? Kusala or akusala?
Well, there's not enough panya to know if at this moment it's sila, but I would like to think it was.
Because you see that from hearing just one word, we have to think over it until no one at all. So it's not one who can abstain, but the cetasika, which abstains, the three virati cetasika. See, no one. Hearing the teachings means that it will lead to understanding actually there's no self, no one at all. Otherwise it's useless. The self listening in order to be better self.
Back to those three, do no harm, do good, and purify the mind.
By
That, well, that is so, in English, that is so like, purify the mind. People think they have to go and clean the mind, but you've really emphasized the fact it must be panya.
they don't understand panya.
No,
So how can they
it
have
has
panya?
to be panya every time. Otherwise,
They read
always
with
it
the
comes
idea of
back.
self. They do according to the self. There
Mm.
must be the self for them because they don't know what is anatta. And the core of the teachings of the Buddha is to understand that there's no atta. All dhammas are anatta. Otherwise it's useless to read and to gain knowledge as I. It's wrong. It means that there is no understanding when there is the idea of self.
And sometimes, Ajahn, we talk about kusala of other levels, even when it's not panya being. I mean, you often refer to.
But panya knows that it's not that level of understanding.
Right, and you talk about being barami of barami, but the point is here is that still, if there's right understanding, kusala or akusala, everything has to be understood.
As not self.
That's no self.
This is the point of the teachings of the Buddha. That because that is the truth, the absolute truth.
So, I was having a look at Nina's new reprint of Perfections, the Paramis, and part of it sort of says that the development of understanding can't develop without the paramis. So it was almost saying these paramis have to be developed before this understanding, but that's not right, is it?
So-
I think, can we say, Ajahn, that they go together, and paramis are not paramis without understanding anyway?
That's probably where they're only paramis when there is understanding.
Right. But we know that those particular kusala dhammas support understanding. And why these particular dhammas and not others? For example, compassion is not a parami, because I don't know why. But
I thought you were going to give a good answer.
I don't know why, but we do know that these particular dhammas lead one out of samsara. Is that the meaning?
Because you see that alopa is metta. How can we have alopa, no lopa, when there is understanding that there is no self, no matter the one who gives or the one who receives, only dhammas. Without understanding the anattanness of everything, it's impossible to have more kusala.
And I think, I don't know if it's by accident, but I think the first one is dana, and that has to, if you can't give precious possessions away, it was saying that it's really more difficult to give away the idea of me.
Mm-hmm.
But that must go.
And I've heard it, also talked before about dana being the easiest compared to sila, something like that. I mean, I don't know if I'm correct in remembering this, but it seems to be saying that sila is more difficult than dana.
Because each moment is sila, but akusala sila. In a day, how many moments or how many drop of sila comes in?
That's a good way to put it. So what you're saying, Ajarn, is that because in a day we are accumulating so much more of akusala sila. That's why sila is okay.
That's why it needs parami to not having more akusala.
Just on that point, sorry, go.
Just sila, it's behaviour. The meaning sila is behaviour, so it's the behaviour of citta.
Always akusala.
Or well, 99.9% of the day is.
Just on that point there, that Kunsukin made, John, Karuna, why, I'm just thinking about that now, so I'd like you to elaborate. Why there isn't Karuna in the Parami?
Okay. If you don't have metta to that person, you cannot help. Sometimes you just want to help or to give, but when you have dosa, you will not give at that moment, but can later on. So you see that if you have now metta, to be understanding person, to seeing the moment of dukkha, it can happen to anyone. If you can help, could you help? It depends on metta at that moment. If you don't like that person, you don't care or you don't mind to do anything for that person at all. But when you have metta, there can be karuna to help. For example, you'll give, but at that moment he behaved not so good, so later you can keep that thing to give until there is metta.
So you're saying there, John, that metta and karuna, they're very much together, really, all the time.
And it's
Not all the time.
Well,
and it is adosa.
so we're talking about, because that is one of the one anya samanyas. This is one of those cetasikas.
Adosa cetasika.
Adosa cetasika. I'm just trying to think of the classification. Anyway, it's probably not so helpful. So it's adosa cetasika, of course.
Because karuna is karuna cetasika, mudita is mudita cetasika,
Yes.
but metta is adosa.
Ajarn, so all I've heard is that you're saying that metta, without metta there cannot be karuna. That I understand, it shows that metta is more important in that respect. But
When
still,
there is still dosa, you cannot karuna. You want that person to have more than just the situation of being dukkha.
but instead of dosa, you can have karuna.
But there must be a dosa,
There must be a dosa.
which is metta. Will you metta the person who did very, very bad behaving? See?
It can happen.
As long as there is dosa, you want that person to be worse than that. Not enough, see, one would say.
Ajarn, I can understand that more opportunities for metta than karuna in a day, because anytime there can be metta, whereas karuna, it has to be with the idea that the other person, the other being is suffering.
But why some help and some doesn't help? Or always help?
Many things, chantha also can be, viriya.
But what about when there is dosa?
Dosa is dosa. It's
You help?
no.
See? So there must be metta or dosa, no dosa at that moment. Otherwise, there cannot be karuna.
Ajarn, could we say that karuna is a more refined aspect of metta, more refined?
Only when that person was in trouble.
The perception has to be that the other being is suffering or in trouble.
So today, now here, it's time for metta or karuna.
It's metta.
See? What about this person who's so bad? Would you like them to be punished or imprisoned? Or it depends on karma. You don't have to do anything at all. Otherwise, you accumulate more akusala. See, it depends on panya.
And if you think someone is bad and you can have think
Karuna.
about karuna, you can have ubekha also.
It depends. And what is more strong or better among ubekha?
I think it's much more difficult.
Because understanding that no need to do or to hate or to dislike. What is better is even so that better have metta than tosa. So would you like to help the bad person? See, no metta, no karuna.
Well, I was thinking, at a time when you see somebody doing something really terrible, there can be metta and compassion, because you know that somewhere that person will receive horrible things happening. If they're doing something really bad, they will receive a result somewhere.
And
so you can have compassion and metta there and then.
Yeah, and no matter who and when, everyone needs to have to be metta,
Everyone you see.
like metta from the other.
Yes.
But in a way, Ajarn, if thinking along those lines, everyone needs karuna also. Because
While you
know
are
that,
happy,
huh?
while you are happy,
No, I mean even because it's akusala, people are accumulating a lot of akusala. Even if they're happy, they're accumulating a lot of attachment. So it's not good.
mhm. So you
they can
have
be-
karuna even for the rich one, or
Yes, can be.
that's the way by Buddha teach to everyone, not only to the one who has trouble. That's why we use Pra Maha Karuna, because he always have metta. What about the person in trouble? The person who's in trouble.
So if no metta, karuna cannot arise. That's why
Because-
metta is parami.
Because metta is atosa.
I still don't understand. I understand that metta is more important. Without metta, there cannot be karuna. But still, why karuna is not barami? I don't know. That's why. That's why it doesn't.
metta, karuna cannot arise.
Yeah, but why not both?
So if no
Why not both?
You know, what would I say? You know what would I say? Let's go and ask Buddha when you will be born and be able to see him. We have to understand how much we can understand the words of the Buddha. Not very easy at all.
The Buddha was also known as Mahakaruniko.
No, I was talking with Azita
About metta.
last Saturday about the Buddha's kusala, and I was trying to express here, which I didn't do so well, about the difference between the Savaka and the Buddha, the Bodhisattva, Savaka Bodhisattva and the Sammasambuddha Bodhisattva. There's a big difference in that, when we have some understanding about the danger of samsara, our first reaction is just to get out. The Buddha was ready in many lives to be out, but his compassion was so great. It's because of his compassion he went for another many kapas.
But it would have had to have metta as well.
That's what I suggested.
Sorry.
Metta, no, that was in a different context. But it's actually, at that time, it expresses karuna. Expresses karuna because it's seeing the suffering of beings.
And when I hear that, I always still think that there has to be motivated by a lot of metta too behind that. There has to be metta.
I mean, we don't have, we don't think like that.
But
We cannot think like that,
why?
No, that like the Buddha, to have compassion and then.
But what Ajahn was saying before, it's metta is adosa. So if you have some irritation towards somebody,
No, I'm
you
talking
be-
about that situation where the Buddha didn't become a savaka, enlightened as a savaka, but he had to go for another four countless.
For Sankhyas.
Yeah, this thing. We wouldn't think. Ajahn, we wouldn't think. We just see so much pointless in living, and we don't, not to say that we think about ourselves, but it's just not thinking about others before us. The Buddha think about others before himself. That's the difference.
Because usually then it was always object to have karuna towards that object. But there can be metta any day, any time. That's why it is parami, daily parami.
That word asankhya, sankhya just means it can be calculated. So asankhya is it's just uncountable.
Unthinkable. How long? Yeah.
And then they add 4 asankhyas. I think it has got so many noughts after it, so many noughts, and then it's got 100,000 kappas as
and
well.
then another 1,000 eons.
I just realized something.
100,000.
Unthinkable. Why it's said it's unthinkable? Because we tend to think that it's going to happen at some point, but it's actually long. We cannot afford to think that it's longer than that, because there's so much attachment that we can only think that up to a certain point, right? Like even if I thought about for how many uncountable, it will still be a limit at some time there, but it's actually even longer than that. We can't afford to think that it's endless, right? We
But
can't.
it is.
We can't afford to think
Why can't we?
because we have so much lopa.
And it's endless.
It is endless. It is.
How much do you accept that?
I accept it.
Endless.
Endless.
The concept of endless.
Well, I think I understand it.
Yeah, but do you accept that that's how long it's going to take?
Yeah,
Long time.
a long time.
Only that.
Well,
It's
you
even
got
longer
back.
than that. It's even longer than that.
But how long? How long has it been already?
It's longer than that.
Unthinkable.
You uncountable.
So
it's
even
not
when-
even worth thinking about.
Yes.
Because
I'm saying no matter how we think, we're thinking with attachment. That's what I'm saying.
I can't think.
No
It's-
matter what we think, no matter what we think about how difficult it is, we're not really understanding how much it is really.
Yeah, and it's the same when you speak of the Buddhas. Compassion. I can't. I can't even imagine a
Right.
Buddha.
It's more than what we can imagine.
It's much more.
It's more than what we can
It's-
imagine.
I just can't think about it. Just I know it's great.
So how much we can understand, but we always think about that which cannot be understood at all.
Yes, we do. That.
And that shows how little we understand.
Yeah.
And we keep talking.
Each drop of kusala accumulated when there is understanding.
It really points to me, Ajahn, how powerful panya must be, because there has been so much akusala that has been accumulated. It seems amazing to me that Panya can eradicate that over billions of lives.
Or
How
even,
great.
Or even eradicate, or even arise in the middle. Or even arise.
That's a good point, yeah. Yeah, even rise.
And this is the best way to worship the Parami of the Buddha.
The best way to worship.
Understanding, talking about the truth, about how much understanding. No one can think about his understanding. So much.
We're not swimming in the ocean, we're not under the sea. We're under the tar, black, pitch black, and then for what point?
I'm not quite following what
No, tar means that in the sea you can still see.
Avijja.
You can still see things, right? You can still estimate where you are, how high you are. We're just totally dark.
It's like in those realms where it's, like the hell realms where when the Buddha gave off the light after enlightenment and those dark realms, suddenly there was a bit of light. And the beings in there went, oh, wow, there's somebody else here. But that, that's... it's another story, but...
And this moment is Parami.
I was watching a little fly before. When Metta poured the water in, he flew around and then went in. I thought, I tried to lift it over. He's going to drown. But all it did was come right to the edge, and I think it was drinking some water. So it stayed there, head down, and then it crawled back up and flew away. So I was sharing my water with a little creature.
Metta, Karuna.
Well, living in the bush as I do in Australia, I have become much more aware of the creatures, like spiders in my house and birds that come to visit. And my friend called me the other day, she lives down a little bit from me, and there was this really huge snake, like really big. Its head was this big, but inside its body was this size. It had eaten a little wild creature that jumps around our yard, and it had strangled the creature. And so the snake it couldn't move. It was so full of food, but its head was watching us. And I thought I sort of felt a bit sorry for the snake. It must be uncomfortable having so much food. Even when I eat so much, it's uncomfortable. But this creature spends days and days just digesting everything belonging, its fur, its eyes, everything.
And what about the creature?
The creature's dead. The creature is dead already. So don't. That's like a hell
You
realm.
can see the difference between Metta, see, and Tulsa.
Yes.
From the words of the Buddha. Each word is to understand what's now.
I was reading in the library yesterday, and I need there's mano dhatu, mano vinyana dhatu, and pancha vinyana dhatu, and I always get them mixed up. So they're jittas, and pancha vinyana dhatu are the jittas that arise before, for example.
Vinyana is Jakku Vinyana, Sota Vinyana.
So they're the 5.
Yes.
Okay. So pancha, the 5, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body. Mano dhatu is it's a jitta that is the mind door. What is mano dhatu?
That's why we have to understand what are those mano dhatu.
Mano Dhatu is applied to the 2 types of sampatichana and 5 door adverting. Pancha Dwara Vachana.
Why it's Manodhatu? We have to understand each word.
Why is it
Well,
called
Dhatu
Mano
is Dhatu means element. Mano is applied to 2 types of I'm really confused about these.
So, what are Manodhatu again?
2 types of receiving, or 2 types of sampatichana and the 5 door adverting.
Pancha.
Pancha Dwara Vachana.
Why are they Manodhatu? There must
Why?
be a reason why.
Why are they Mano Dhatu?
They can experience the 5 sense door, but they cannot see. So, Panchadwara Vachana and Sampatichana are different from seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, but all of them needs the 5 doors, 5 senses to be their doorways.
So Panchadwara Vachana jittas arise before for example,
It cannot
Jakavinyana.
experience the object through mind door. Those who cannot experience the objects through mind door are Manodhatu. But they are not the 10 Chakvinyana, Sotavinyana. So we can understand them as not self, better and better from hearing and understanding that no one can do or quite arrange, can change anything at all, because of the abhidhamma, uncontrollable, the way it is by conditions. Because each citta has the anantara paccaya. As soon as it fall away, it conditions the next one immediately. Only parinibbana moment cannot have this paccaya at all. So there must be reason why they are Manodhatu, because they do not arise at the Sakku Pasatha, Sota Pasatha. They have to arise at Hataya Rupa and can experience only 5 doorways. Even they arise that, but they need only 5 sense, 5 Dvara to arise. While the Santirna can experience through my door, but not performing the function of Santirana. That's why Santirana have 5 functions. In order to understand it, the more we understand, the more no self is there. It brings about understanding that there cannot be anyone who can do anything. They are all dhammas. They have their own characteristic, their own function, their own manifestation, and the main proximate cause.
So you a moment ago mentioned Santirana
Santirana can experience object through mind door.
as well as sense
They
door.
are different from these 3.
Okay.
Sometimes it seems a better decision to leave some things for future lives to understand, because we can't understand. We just sometimes we're so caught up in word meaning that, and those particular dhammas don't even appear in daily life, but they can be understood, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. So the way to really understand is just to understand what appears little by little.
But I think Ajarn too has pointed out to us that by considering carefully, it can become a little bit more clearer. Because
What is becoming more clear?
those aspects there that
They can't. Well, they can. You cannot. There's no control over any of this, and it points to. It points clearly to why there's no control.
And I think if there's a better
You have a look on your face that says, "I doubt."
Okay, go on.
I'm just saying, I appreciate Zita asking that question, because I've often still not entirely clear. It's becoming clearer though between Dhamma Dhatu, Manovinyana Dhatu and Manu Dhatu. They're not so clear. There have been times when they have been clearer. So I appreciate Zita asking them again. And the way Ajarn is explaining it and what she's talked about earlier today is that the firmer the understanding of pariyatti is, although this doesn't entirely relate to that kind of understanding, it can provide a foundation because there's more of there's an appreciation that it's can help to understand the non-self of everything. But I think it's important to have a good intellectual understanding of these areas. I think I can hear what you're saying. I can almost hear you thinking, but I think it's really helpful, and especially what Ajarn has just said, that by thinking carefully ourselves, you can begin to understand these matters. They're not beyond, they're not beyond thinking carefully, and why that's so. Like Ajarn was talking about earlier today, that one of the first questions I asked about is why people think, there must be something I can do, and Ajarn said, let them think it out for themselves. And I think that's part of that. What she's encouraging us to do here is consider it carefully, and then it will become clearer.
Ajarn, for me, hearing about these things can be a reminder that all dhammas, and it must be now, arise by conditions beyond control. Each one has a different function, manifestation, proximate cause and characteristics. Seeing is not the same as Santirana, not the same as Sampatichana, not the same as Manodwara, Vachana Chitta. All are different. But still, to understand a Dhamma as anatta, it's only through understanding what appears, isn't it?
Because just 3 words not enough. It needs more and more.
Can I just read out? This was before that. Dhatu is derived from da, to hold, to bear. That which carries its own characteristic mark is dhatu. They are so called since they are devoid of being or life. So I thought that was, that's from Narada's Abhidhamma.
If one just remember, no understanding, it cannot bring.
There is that you can learn all this, you can read this
Like
books.
I know,
it makes logical sense when you explain the meaning of Manodwara, Manodhatu and Manovinyana Dhatu and all that, showing the difference in explanation. There's a level of appreciation that it's not the same. It's referring to different things, different dhammas. But still, it's nowhere close to understanding their nature. I mean, it's still thinking about that.
But it will be conditioned. Otherwise, without this moment of understanding, it's impossible to have conditions for right awareness to arise. The more understanding theoretically, it will condition to have moment of sati arising, and very natural, and expectation.
And I think it shows different accumulations too, because I can hear what you're saying. I understand that you don't find it that interesting, but I love reading, and I like going to that library in Asok, and I just write, I sit there and write forever. Sometimes I write and then I never read it again, but I'm encouraging myself to read what I've written, and it really is very deep, the Abhidhamma.
We do have the Pitaka here as well.
Yes.
But regardless of accumulations, it comes back to, for each person, what appears now.
It's
Isn't
so
it?
quiet.
Ajarn?
So now we have a little more conditions for awareness.
It must be, if Panya has arisen, it has to work its way. As Sundara was reminding, Panya is very powerful. So if even little is very helpful.